So, what is the FLYNN effect? Well, the FLYNN effect deals with the issue of how the general IQ scores of a population change over time. In his study of IQ test scores for different populations over the past 60 years, Mr. James R. Flynn discovered that IQ scores increased from one generation to the next for all of the countries for which data existed. This interesting phenomena has been called the FLYNN effect. Many of the questions about why this effect occurs have not yet been answered by researchers. This video report attempts to explain the issues involved in a way that will better help you to understand the FLYNN effect. Research shows that IQ gains have been mixed for different countries. In general, countries have seen generational increase between 5 and 25 points. The largest gains appear to occur on tests that measure fluid intelligence rather than crystallized intelligence. So what is fluid intelligence? Tests like the Ravens, the Norwegian matrices, the Belgian shapes test, the Jenkins test, and the Horn test are examples of tests that attempt to measure fluid intelligence. These tests try to emphasize problem solving and minimize a reliance on specific skills or familiarity with words and symbols. These tests on average have shown an increase of about 15 points of one standard deviation per generation. Coming up to crystallized intelligence. Tests like Welschler, Binet and purely verbal test measures crystallized intelligence in addition to fluid intelligence. Some question on these tests measure problem solving abilities, but other measure learned information such as vocabulary and math skills. The IQ gains for these tests have been more moderate with an average of about 9 points per generation. The countries from which data has been gathered to research the increase of IQ scores over time are Australia, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Britain, Canada, China, Denmark, East Germany, France, Israel, Japan, Netherlands, New Zealand, Northern Ireland, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, United States of America, and West Germany. So, what are the possible causes for the FLYNN effect? What do intelligent tests really test? To what extent do they measure learning versus raw intelligence versus some other factor that is correlated with intelligence? The answer to these questions are still being researched by scholars around the world. Flynn originally offered three categories of potential explanations. First, artifacts. Second, test sophistication. Third, actual intelligence increases. The hypothesis that best fits the result in that IQ tests do not measure intelligence, but rather correlate with a weak causal link to intelligence. Based on the presence of the effect on non-verbal tests such as the Raven's matrices, Flynn's belief that the increase is actually an increase in abstract problem solving rather than intelligence. Flynn favors environmental explanations for the increase in test scores. Can education be the cause of IQ gains? In many countries, the level of education of the general public is increasing. People are spending a large amount of their time learning and being examined in a formal educational settings. In some cases, IQ gains are highly correlated to increased years spent in formal education. Again, several scholars point at the increase in culture-free tests as evidence against an educational cause. The Brand hypothesis: can societal changes cause IQ gains? Brand suggested that societal changes that teach testing with time limits could be a cause of IQ gains. The idea behind this hypothesis is that people in our society have learned to work better within a limited time frame. This societal trend allows later generation to score better on timed tests because they make intelligent guesses and don't waste time trying to get every test item correct. Although this hypothesis seemed promising, there has been research that contradicts its fundamental assumptions. It has also been hypothesized that IQ gains are the result of better worldwide nutrition. The idea behind this hypothesis is that better nourished brains would allow subjects to perform better on IQ tests as well as in everyday activities. Experimental data trying to prove this theory are also mixed, leading one to believe that nutrition, though a possible contributing cause, cannot account entirely for the massive gains in IQ measured around the world. Because populations experience IQ gains over time, IQ tests must be constantly re-standardized so that subjects are not scored against inaccurate norms. using obsolete IQ norms can cause problems, especially when comparing scores between different groups and populations. FLYNN documents an example where scores from a group of Chinese Americans were being compared to an earlier generation of white Americans. This simple mistake caused the researchers to believe that they were working with an elite IQ group, when in actuality they were working with a group of high achievers with comparable IQs to their peers. In another case documented by FLYNN, IQ scores were compared against obsolete norms to incorrectly show large increases in IQ between children adopted into good homes and their biological mothers. A widely held hypothesis is that people lose fluid intelligence as they age. This phenomena is caused by comparing the IQ tests of elderly people with today's young people. However, when compared to the IQ scores of youth in their own era, a half of a century before, the IQ losses with age are nominal. In a fine example, FLYNN explains that the WISC, an intelligence test used widely in the United States, was not re-standardized for 25 years between 1947 and 1972. This comparison of IQ scores to obsolete norms caused the number of children who were officially classified as mentally retarded to drop from 8.8 million in 1947 to 2.6 million in 1972. The FLYNN effect illustrates the difficulty of comparing test results over time, but it says little about the validity of tests within a given time period. FLYNN talks about the validity within generations. Follow Bart's Report Instagram handle for more updates. If you like our content, hit the like button, share or subscribe. This is Bart's Report signing off.